Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Born to Succeed podcast, the number one podcast on the planet for helping you succeed on both a personal and professional level. Where every podcast we bring you motivation, inspiration, faith, hope, and love, and we remind you that you are born to succeed. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. The Born to Succeed podcast is all about you. It is the number one podcast on the planet for helping you succeed on both a personal and professional level. I'm your gracious host, Michael Merritt, and we're so blessed today, guys, to have a special guest, Miss Elizabeth Maldonado. How are you doing today, ma'am?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. It is our pleasure. So, guys, Miss Elizabeth, I'm going to let her tell her about herself, but she is a teacher. She's a life coach. She's an author. She's a podcaster. She's a Sticker Shock Speaking Academy graduate. And so we're going to let her tell a little bit more about herself, but she has a resume just going on and on here. So, Miss Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit more detail there.
Sure. I started my homeschooling program like in 2014 sometime, and I left the public school system and I wanted to find a niche of my own. I really wanted to help at-risk youth in my own way, and just to have that ability to get to know them and know their needs and really work with the families and give them more one-on-one. And from that, the life coaching came in because I felt like there was such a need for more individualized attention. So that's where that came from. But I enjoy working with them, and I've learned a whole lot. You know how they say that there's a science to things? Well, there's definitely an art to everything too.
Yes.
And you learned a lot working with people and their situations and how they deal with adversity.
Yeah. So definitely there's an art and science, right? And the science comes down to all the numbers and the specs and all that, but the art comes from the heart.
Exactly.
It comes from the passion and the connection. And so there's definitely both sides of that. So Miss Elizabeth, where do you live at?
I live in San Antonio, Texas. I live on the west side of town. I graduated from Incarnate Word, and I went to Holmes High School here in the area. We've been here. I've been here. The only time I left was after my dad passed. We left and lived in Pearsall for like 2 years and then came back. I loved the country because it was so peaceful, but there was just not enough there to keep me going.
Right. Yeah. I love the country myself as well, but my business kind of keeps me in the city. Otherwise, I'm traveling back and forth all the time. I lived in the country for a while. I was driving 50 miles into the city every day, and it just becomes a drag sitting in the car 3 hours a day, no doubt.
Absolutely. I did that for 2 years when I was going to school at the time, and I was going back and forth, and the commute was killing me. But it is so peaceful, and I love the fact that everybody will wave and talk to you. And
yes, it's a different feeling, right? For sure.
Yes, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your life coaching, Miss Elizabeth.
I really try to concentrate on communication, problem solving, self-esteem, because I feel like those are key. But really, it's not a cookie cutter approach. I really try to get to know the person at their very core and get to know what they're all about and what makes them tick, and then work with that and go from there. I think a lot of times we can be really hard on ourselves, and when you don't get what you want, you tend to want to shut down and quit moving forward. And that's one of the things I really want to keep people from doing. I want them to continue on, and even though things get hard sometimes, working past those blocks and get to know them and really understand them at their very core.
Yeah, very good. And do you work with all age groups, or do you have one specific, male, female, or just anybody that wants to come?
Really, I have dealt with 17 and up, and I've had a few that were like 19, 20 years old, but mostly it's been women that are close to my age. I'm 47. And I think it's that time when the kids are finished with school and they're moving on, they're going to college, and then there's that empty nest syndrome kind of thing, and then they're like,
Yep.
what do I do now? It's almost like recreating yourself, because I'm no, I was a mom, and I was a wife, and I was all these other roles, but those roles change, and they want to take that time they have now and do something positive with it.
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, I was just the other day got a great text from a friend. His wife, they live up north, and I went to junior high and high school with him. And that's kind of what happened with her. The kids got out of the house after many, many years. And last year she was kind of like, I don't know what to do, but I think I want to go back to school, and I think I want to get a job. And so I just kind of reached out and started coaching her. I was like, I'm not going to charge you at all. I just want to coach you because I know you got it. And long story short, a year later, she's got a job. She's in school. She sent me a message the other day, Mike, I just kicked butt on the psychology test and made a 97.5, and it wouldn't be without your coaching. And I was like, no, it's because you got it. But you had to have that pulled out of you, because she definitely had all those doubts and fears, right?
Oh,
Which we all have. We have fears.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of us have deep-rooted fears, whether it's the failure or rejection or taking a risk, or all these different fears that we have, the unknown, whatever it may be. Success, some people have fear of success.
Yeah, and it is a scary thing, I think, sometimes when you go into something that you don't know and you put your heart into it. But I feel like it's all a sense of education. It used to be that the teacher would stand at the blackboard and, okay, everybody take a turn answering the math question. And it's not like that anymore. It's not the sage on the stage, it's the guide on the side. It's more like facilitating, and they still have that sense of ownership. But without that guide, sometimes it's really difficult. And when you quit pouring into yourself, it's really hard to stay motivated. But when you have someone pouring into you, telling you got it, you can do this, you got this, those kind of things make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Well, I love that word you just used, facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, a facilitator, because a lot of times, as a coach, that's what we are, the facilitator of confidence or wisdom, or maybe it's just input. A lot of times that's where we've got to start with our clients, is the mental side. And that's the first question I ask is, what's your input? What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you speaking into yourself? What are all those things that you're doing as far as input? We got to have that good input. So
absolutely. And I think it's great. Like the rewiring too. Sometimes just you tell yourself the same things all the time, then you don't move forward. But if you tell yourself new things, and you're reading, like you said, reading and watching videos, or whatever it is that that media that you're using to pour into yourself, it helps you move forward and it keeps you inspired. Yeah, I had to do a lot of changes with that. I felt like, I couldn't do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right? So I had to, if I want to change things, then I've got to do some things different. I've got to have some really positive behaviors, because your behaviors have to be congruent with your goals. And sometimes that's difficult to see at the beginning, but then as you get going, you start to see, okay, yeah, this isn't going to get me anywhere. I got to change it.
Right. Because feelings come from emotions, and then when we have the emotions, and emotions end up creating our behavior a lot of times. And so it is that rewiring of our system sometimes, and a reboot, and going, you know what, I got to get rid of some of this stuff. And I actually just made a YouTube video on it the other day, because one of my pastors that I listened to the other day gave a great message and talked about the things in life that we've been programmed with or been dealt with, and all these different things. And it was called Patterns, Trauma, and Scripts. Ooh, and he was talking about all the patterns that we've picked up individually from every single person you've dealt with in life. And he talked about, he used himself as an example. He goes, my dad was a yeller, and my dad was an angry guy, but he loved people, but he was just he goes, and I found myself years ago going, I'm that guy. I have that same pattern. I got to break this pattern. And then he pointed out all these different other patterns. Maybe you're an alcoholic. Maybe you're a gambler. What patterns have you picked up that we got to change? And then he talked about trauma. What's the trauma that you've had, whether it's emotional or physical, whatever may have happened to you, or, somebody else did, whatever, that you have to release that. And then the scripts, the scripts are what has been put on us from birth. I expect Miss Maldonado to be this. I want her to grow up as this. What scripts were put on us throughout life? Well, I expect you to drive this, go to this school, go to this house, and all those things. So those are all things we got to get rid of. And limiting beliefs as well. But I think so many times people put things on us, and then we just kind of get programmed through life. And definitely, I think that's one of the greatest things about life coaching is that we're able to take people and go, you don't have to think that way anymore.
Right.
Let's change the way you're thinking, because stinking thinking will get you nowhere.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Right?
I think that's what's great about life. It's dynamic. You can always change things. If you don't like where you're at, move and do something different.
Yep.
You can always recreate yourself, start over.
Yep.
And look at your gifts and your talents, and then figure out how to tap into that, because that's really what makes you happy, is when you're doing something you love.
That's right. Yeah. Because when you have a passion for something, then the love is there. And it's, when the true saying is that when you love what you do, you're never working. And that is absolutely true.
I believe that's true too. Yeah, no, that's very true.
And unfortunately, so many people never get to experience that. I've been a paramedic for 27 years, and I have a medical educational training business, and I'm so blessed that I took it full time about, matter of fact, 8 years ago in 2013, back in May. So over 8 years, I've been full time with it. But I truly love teaching. I'm a teacher. And when I teach people how to save lives through education, and I teach the most advanced critical classes to paramedics, nurses, doctors, surgeons, and when they say, Mike, I've been doing this class for 10 years and I learned more today than I ever have, I'm like, oh man, you know what? That right there, whew, it makes me feel so good. And so I love teaching, and it's never work. It never's work. And so the same with coaching. I love to coach people and know that I'm making a difference in their life. And so many people never get that. They work a job and they're never happy. And so that's the idea, right? Is that we can take those folks and go, you can have a greater life than you think, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes we have these big dreams and then we give up on them because we think, oh, that's too hard, or that's going to take too much money, or all these excuses, right?
Right.
But if you really, really have a passion for doing something, go for it. Even if it takes you a little while before you get there, because in the end, the result will be worth it. It'll be so worth it.
Yeah.
I could think, growing up, I had teachers that, really kind of, I loved going to class, like I couldn't wait to get there. And then I had some teachers where I was like, oh my God, I have to go there,
Right.
Because it was dry and it wasn't really interactive and things like that.
Yep.
But the teachers that really resonated with me were the ones that made it fun and engaging, and they really had a passion for what they did.
Yep. That's it. And you can really see that when they have a passion, or the ones that were just there going, sit down, be quiet. I'm trying to get 10 years or I retire. I've got 30 years in and I'm going to do 35. You're like, oh my gosh.
It's so true.
5 years of students just got to be tortured by this poor lady. And already 10 years have been doing that. So geez Louise. Yeah. But, I see that in so many businesses. Being paramedic, I've seen that so much in the healthcare business, especially since COVID. Oh my word. Our providers are just spanked. They're just wore out and tired and done. And any, the passion that they have is the only thing that's keeping them alive, really and truly, in the business. And so many of them are like, man, even as though I love what I do, I just don't know how much longer I can do this. It's like, oh my goodness. But definitely you can see the passion in some, and then you can see it whittle away. And when you do, you're like, whoo, that's what we call jaded. It's time to get out of that field.
No, it's true. It's very
But
true.
definitely, like you said, if we want to do something in life, we'll do it. And if we don't, truly, we'll just make excuses. I tell people all the time, because you can make an excuse for anything. But if you want to do it, you'll truly do it. I don't care what that is, from the worst habit to the best habit. If you want to run every day, you'll make a way to do it. You'll find a way to eat better. You'll find a way to do the things that you're supposed to do. But if you don't, you won't. You just won't have the passion, and so you'll end up making excuses. And that's a lot of times where people end up, is in procrastination land, which is, of course, the worst nation you could ever be in.
No, but it's true. It's very true. And I know we were talking about, things that were coming up. We're looking at the women's conferences coming up for the breast cancer awareness. And those kind of things, make you realize, your own mortality, right? Like, I'm not going to be here forever. My time is limited. I need to make the most of it. And those kind of things really make me think, hey, I don't have time to waste. I've got to, figure out what I want and go for it, because I don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to make the most of what I do have.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point right there. Now, do you think you've gained that insight over the last few years?
This last year alone has really made a difference for me. I felt like and it's like you said, you get jaded and you get, burnt out, and then making a change or finding your nature or your passion for that one population of people that I wanted to work with, it made such a difference.
Right.
And then being able to really invest in myself, emotionally, physically, like you said, eating better, exercising more, and just staying away from things I know are not good for me. All those things really made such a difference, and the mindset, I think, made a big difference too.
Sure.
In just a little bit of time, I feel like I've grown so much, and it's due to the people that I've had that have really helped me to get there.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing too, is like, I want to stay around my supporters and then my influencers, but I want to stay away from the ones that try to talk me out of my goals and talk me out of my dreams, and the naysayers need to go away.
Yeah, and you're always going to have those, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you will. And it's how you deal with them, because I know before I would get angry and want to prove what I'm doing can be done, that kind of thing, and I thought, I've got nothing to prove to anybody but myself.
Right.
And so I take what I want, and I take the information that I get and plug it in where it needs to be. And when I hear those kind of things, I just, I don't even respond anymore. I thought, think what you want to think. We're going to agree to disagree, and then we'll move on.
Right.
Because it's wasted energy, really, to sit and argue and
Yep.
go back and forth. It's just a waste of energy.
Yep. I always just say, basically they just don't see it. And if they don't see what you got, then that's okay. Not everybody does. God put stuff in our imagination, and hopefully we put it down on paper and it becomes goals. And then I'm running out there towards it. But a lot of times when you tell somebody I'm going to be a motivational speaker, or I'm going to be a life coach, or this, that, and the other, and they look at you and go, "You?"
Yeah,
what?
Exactly. I've got,
man, I know I grew up with you, bro. I was in high school with you. And I'm like, yep, that was 30 years ago.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
I might have been a little crazy back then, and I rode bulls, and I was pretty wild cat, no doubt. But that's not the Christ follower that I am today. And so the Christ follower that I am today is the person that's leading from my heart and coming from a different direction. So I just always say, they don't understand it, but a lot of times, it is the people that are close to us as not just friends but family. It's a lot of times family that'll say, "What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time at that? Do you think you're going to do that? You think you're really going to make it?" And you're like, "Appreciate it."
I had one. I had one person just here in the neighborhood. That one of my neighbors, and I think he saw one or two of the little speaker reels that I had posted, and he's like, "What are you doing with that?" And he gave me that stank face, And I was like, "Ah," but
right.
But I smiled and I just said, that's what I want to do. I said, and it's sharing your message, and when I'm doing that, I'm resonating with people, and I'm letting them know they're not alone, and they're not the only ones dealing with anything that's hard or adverse, and that you can work past it, and then sharing tips and techniques and strategies and learning those from them too.
Sure.
So it's a give and take. It's a two-way street, but. Yeah, some people will never see it, but it's not our job to try to convince them either. It's everybody's got their own dream, and they're all different. That's just like when they talk about comparing. People say, well, she's my age and look where she's at, and that kind of thing. And like, we all have a different journey, and it's a different road that everybody takes to get to to their destination. And maybe that person took a different route for a different reason. And I think God calls us to do different things too. It's not all, not all of us are going to be doctors and lawyers and things like that,
Right.
And really, some of the people that are in those professions, I mean, it's great money and stuff, but they will tell you it's stressful, and spend a lot of time away from family and things like that. So it's a balance. No matter where you go and what you do, it's finding that balance.
Right. It's finding that calling, that passion, like you said, and if you can find that early in life, that's great. Obviously, the faster we find that why in life, the faster we can be happy, and the more people we can serve, because that's what it's about. It's about being God's, being a servant for God and serving others. And so when I do life coaching or speaking or making a podcast, and it's so funny when people, especially those that know me from back in the day, like, "So you're a podcaster? I see you posting stuff. You're a podcaster?" I'm like, "I'm not a podcaster."
Yeah.
I'm like, I make podcasts for one reason, so that somebody can listen to something and hear hopefully one word one sentence, one thing, whether it's me speaking or an amazing guest like you. And when they hear that, they go, I resonate with that. Because we all, like you said, we all have a story. All of us have a story to tell. And some people don't want to get it out there. But I always say, when you get your story out, you're going to help somebody. The
It
second you
does.
get it out, they're going to go, I resonate. And you moved on from that. How did you do it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think so many times people want to censor everything. It's like, oh no, I don't want anybody to know about this, and I don't want
Yep.
to know it. You know, it's almost like you're hiding something, and there's nothing
Sure.
to hide. We all have troubles that come our way. We
Yep.
all have, things that happen to us that are adverse, and sometimes there are things we can't control. But sharing your story does help. I mean, not just the person listening, but yourself. I know when I wrote my book and I talked about some of the things that I had gone through, it was such a therapeutic way to work through all of the things that I had been through, just to write it down.
Yes.
And it was a neat experience. It really, really was. And I encourage anybody who, has a story out there that's, if you had something different, something unique, put it out there, because it's what we need. We need to be real with each other,
Yep.
quit censoring everything. And, I don't want to talk about that because I don't want, put my life out there, that kind of thing.
Right.
No, we all go through the same stuff. It's just
Yep.
some people, want to hide it. I don't know why.
Yep.
If we were more real with each other, I think that we would evolve so much faster.
We would. We all have the same problems, and we all have the same thing. And the problem is that we get these biases, we get these generational curses, the bondage that gets thrown upon us. One of the things I talked about when I made my YouTube video the other day, breaking patterns. I grew up in a very racist, white country family. And it's really sad to say that, but my grandfather was extremely racist. If you weren't just a white person, he would call you some kind of slang name.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if you were Hispanic or black or Chinese or Vietnamese. He had some kind of slang negative connotation for you. And that's the world I grew up in. And I certainly am thankful that I didn't carry those patterns on. And becoming a healthcare provider when I was young, I was like 21 years old, 20 when I went through fire academy and paramedic school, and 21 on the ambulance treating people. And I never had that thought. I never touched anybody and went, oh my gosh. I treated everybody the same. And I always preached, and I'm like, man, if you're in this business and you're racist, I don't even see how you do it, because we all bleed red. Man,
right,
you cut them open, they all bleed the same. When they're sliced in half, all their organs bleed out on the table. They're all the same, man. We're all the same inside. Exactly. And we all deal with the same problems. But, it is what we grow up in. And a lot of times that's due to, again, those things that are put on us, right? The house you grow up in, the limiting beliefs, the society around you that says you can't grow. And so then maybe you think the lid is on and you can't grow. And so that's where you stay in your little bubble.
Right. My brother is an EMT basic, and he kept up his certification and things like that. But right now he's working in a completely different field, only because he wanted more time with his family and things of that sort. But I know he has such a passion for helping people, and I just know deep down that medical field is where he belongs, Right. And so I'm hoping that at some point, he's able to make his way back and do and he's an EMT basic, but that's
so hard, especially for a basic, when and I don't know what he makes per hour, but I know here in Dallas, Care Flight averages about $11-12 an hour for a basic EMT.
Yeah, it's low. Yeah,
and when I think of that, I'm like, are you serious, man? That's what we're paying people to flip burgers at McDonald's. Right. And that's what you're going to pay our EMTs to ride the ambulance. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
The pay has been that way forever. I can tell you that even years ago, the last ambulance service I rode for, I quit in the ambulance in about 2009 and completely worked in the emergency department and medical company that did events. And I was also teaching after that, but I got off the ambulance in 2009. And at that time, I'd been a paramedic for 15 years. And on the ambulance, I was making $15 an hour. Now, that was in 2009, but still it hasn't come up that much through the past few years. Yeah. Our medics and EMTs make no money out there. And the only way they do make money, just like I did, work overtime.
Yes, and he would do that. He would do that. I mean, when you have a big
Yep.
family, you're trying to make all the money you can. But
Well,
it's
yeah.
killing them, and then you think, well, you're never home. You're really, missing all
Yep.
those special moments with the family and stuff like that.
Yep.
And and it's that whole work-life balance, and that's what we talk about as coaches too, with our clients. Is like, what makes you happy, or what do you want more of? What do you enjoy, and then trying to find a way to get all of that to work out.
Right.
But you're right, and you think about it, you're like, wow, these are people who are first responders, that you would think that we would value them more to pay them what they're worth.
Right. Yeah.
Now police officers do pretty good, as far as like,
Police officers make a little bit more. They
yeah,
do, but still they don't get paid what they're worth. But
no,
I can tell you that back in the day, I averaged up until 2009. From the very start of my career, I averaged 80 hours a week, and usually it was about 90.
wow,
And nobody should have to work that much just to make a living. And I really did, and I never lived extravagantly. It was just being able to live.
right,
But I knew I could do that because on the ambulance you could pull a 24-hour shift.
exactly,
And so I could pull 24, turn around and pull another 24, and in 2 days I was already 8 hours at overtime.
no, it's
And so
true.
if I could work 4 shifts that week, I could get 96 hours in 1 week out of those 4 days. And sometimes I would do that and still pick up a 12-hour shift at the emergency department. There were weeks that I did 108 hours, and people went,
Wow, no,
"What
my
is wrong
brother
with you?"
too.
And I was like, "Man, I was trying to get ahead. I was
Right,
just,
yeah,
it's ridiculous." Yeah, and
yeah,
it really tore me up and did just what you said. No family time. You didn't
no.
get to take care of my physical self. It just was it wasn't good. And in our life, we have to have a spiritual and mental and physical side. We've got to have all three. We can't just have one. It's not about just making money.
No,
Now
no,
you mentioned earlier about a book. What's the name of your book that's out?
Oh, it's called Hope Drives: Overcoming Adversity.
Okay.
And the street I live on is called Hope Drive, so I called it Hope Drives. But it has all the different domains of resiliency in it, and then I just kind of interwove things that we went through in our family or personally to give example of how we dealt with some of those things and what we learned from the adversity that we faced. So I think it's something that people can resonate with. It's something that definitely would be applicable to just everyone.
Absolutely. And for all those listening, guys, I always are going to put those links in the description of the notes in this podcast. So I'll put the link for her books and the link for her website and all that good stuff as well. Also, Miss Elizabeth, you have a podcast that's out. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. It's called The Amazing You.
Okay.
And what I try to do is find people who have been through something difficult or adverse, and they talk about how they worked through it and how happy they are that they didn't give up, and then where they're at today, and they share ideas or testimonials and things like that, just to help everybody become inspired and keep wanting to move forward.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Well, Miss Elizabeth, I certainly appreciate you being on. I always like to kind of wrap up with one of the last things is just saying, as a guest, what are some nuggets of wisdom, some things that you want to make sure that our listeners just leave with this that resounds with you? That's like, they have to know this before I get off. What are some things that they need to know?
To never give up, to believe in yourself, and to dream big. I think those three are very key. I think if you do those three things, you really will be in a good place.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Miss Elizabeth, I will put all your stuff down in the notes again, just like I described a minute ago, so that they can access you for coaching and get that book out there, guys. Again, the name of the book is Hope Drives: Overcoming Adversity. The name of her podcast is The Amazing You. And again, her name is Elizabeth Maldonado. So check her out there. And we're going to again put her stuff in there as far as the website and all that, so that she can get some business headed her way. And so check out her book and her podcast. And Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And guys out there listening, we always just say thank you so much for listening. We hope that what we've said today, even if one thing resonates with you, then this podcast was worth our time. As you can see, Miss Elizabeth is just like I am. Her passion is about giving back to others. And we do that through motivation, inspiration, faith, hope, and love. So I'll wrap it up with saying, just remember, you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough others get what they want and need. And to always remember to follow the golden rule, because if we treat others like we want to be treated, we'd all live in a better world. Guys, remember, you're born to succeed, and you sometimes have to choose that. And so listen to your podcast today, get some good reading in, get some books, some videos, and remember, you have a choice every day when you wake up. Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much again for
Thank
being with
you.
us. I look forward to seeing you grow. I know your best is yet to come. Have an amazing and blessed day.
You
And
too.
we'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We want to thank everyone so much for taking the time to listen to the Born to Succeed podcast with Michael and Elisa Merritt. We know that you have a very busy schedule, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend time with us. You can find us at Merritt Coaching Group on YouTube, Facebook. You can email us at merrittcoachinggroup@gmail.com. We want to remind you that you can have everything you want in life if you just help enough others get what they want and need. Remember to follow the golden rule. You can have everything you want. Yeah, but you got to do what? Treat others as you want to be treated. So until next time, have a very blessed day. From Michael and Elisa Merritt.